Welcome to the Billing 3 Creating and Sending Statements webinar. During today's webinar, we're going to learn how to send statements to patients, and we're going to briefly touch on how to send individual statements, but then we're going to spend a majority of our time going over how to generate and send statements to multiple patients at the same time. And by the end of today's webinar, you should be able to create and send a statement for an individual patient or family, know how to create a receipt or invoice for an individual account, generate and print a list of patients to be billed, edit individual statements within the billing list, preview statements, remove a patient from the billing list, send, print, and/or email statement batches. With that, we're going to start by going to an individual patient account and generating a statement. To do that, we're going into the account module. And in here, you're going to see up on the toolbar you have in the upper right a statement button. Now, if you click on this button, it will immediately send a statement to the printer with your default settings. And in my database, it's set to prompt me to choose a printer, but in your database, you may find that if you click that button, it immediately goes to your default printer. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that because I don't actually want to send the statement to print. What I want to show you is on the statement button, we have a drop-down list. So if you click on the down triangle to the far right, you're going to see you have different options for creating different types of statements. You can click on the walkout, and this will immediately print a statement that only shows today's procedures activity, basically any account activity for today. You can click on the email, and this is going to open the edit email message window, and it automatically attaches the statement to the email. So you can simply add a message if you want to and go ahead and click send. I'll cancel out of that. The additional options on here is to create a receipt. When you click this button, it will immediately send a receipt to the printer that will just have today's payment information on it. If you're wanting to print a payment for a previous date, you can do that using the more options, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And then the invoice option. This is used to create an invoice that's attached to procedures and/or adjustments. So to use the invoice option, you first need to come into the account, select the procedures you want to invoice for, and then use the drop-down and select invoice. And in here, I'll go ahead and hit the view button so you can see what an invoice will look like through Open Dental. And you'll see that this will be slightly different from a statement. It'll say invoice at the top, and in just a little bit we'll look at a statement and we'll see how these differ. But this will just show the procedures that you highlighted and the amounts due for those procedures. It would also show adjustments if you had selected adjustments as well. Go ahead and cancel out of that. And now let's go to the more options, the last option here. And this is where you're going to come to really control what may or may not show on a statement before you print it. And what I like about the more options window is you have the view option, so you can preview what you're going to see before you print it and not waste paper or ink. So let's start at the upper left with the date. This is pre-populated with today's date, but can be changed to any date as needed. Below that, the Sent checkbox will automatically become checked once the statement is printed or emailed using the print or email button down at the bottom. It could also be manually changed if you wanted to manually mark it as sent for some reason. Below that, your mode tells the method of delivery. So if you gave it to them in person, if you're going to mail it, if you're using email, once you hit the email button, it will automatically switch to email. And electronically is typically when you've sent it through a clearinghouse who's going to go ahead and send your statements on your behalf. Below that, we have our hide payment options. Before I click this button, I'm going to show you a quick preview of our statement as it is now. And what we see here is that in the upper right, I've got a grid with the amount due, the due date. I also have some options for putting in credit card information. If I close out of here and choose the hide payment options and hit view, what we'll see is that those items have disappeared from the statement. You're also going to notice that I have a family selected. So the guarantor is Wallace, and each family member has their own grid that shows their account transactions within the date range. If I close this and we can choose single patient only, we should just see Josie's information when we click view this time. So here we go. We have just Josie's grid. No longer do we show Wallace's information. Let's close that. Alternately, if I choose intermingle family members, what we're going to see is instead of each family member having their individual grid of transactions, it's going to be a single grid with all family members in date order, whatever their transactions are. So we'll see that Josie had all this work done. Wallace came in today. Josie had some stuff done today. So we're going to see all of these just in date order in a single grid, intermingled just as it says. The other option is your receipt. So your receipt option is going to show any payments that fall within whatever date range you've set here. And when we view a receipt, we see that up at the top it clearly states it's a receipt, and all we have is the $10 patient payment for Josie on the 11th. That's the only payment we've posted to this account. In the upper right, you've got your date ranges, and this allows you to control the level of detail that is going to show on the statements. So transactions that fall between the start and end date will show in detail. Anything that happened before the start date is going to show as a single line item labeled balance forward. So let's take a look at that. You can change the date range manually by typing it in, or you can use the quick buttons below. So if we did today and we viewed that, we don't see anything showing up in here. If we did the last 45 days and view that, whoops, I apologize, we had receipt checked still. So let's go back to today and hit view. I didn't have any payments for today. So if you take a look at this now, you'll see Wallace has his grid and Josie has hers, and hers has a balance forward line showing everything that happened before today and then detailed line items of the items that we did today. So this just determines the level of detail that you see for transactions. If we close here, if either of these dates is left blank, it means that there is no limitation. So usually if you're leaving the start date blank, you're going to get all account history back to the beginning of the account, and this can make for some very long statements. So you want to pay attention to this date. At the bottom, we have a notes section, and we have either just regular notes or we have bold notes. And so in here, I'm going to show you an example of our regular notes and our bold notes. You're going to notice bold notes showing a big red font here. So if we view this, our regular notes are going to show, we'll go to page 2, down here only at the bottom of the statement. Bold notes are going to show at the bottom in that bold red font, as well as at the top of the statement. So you have more visibility on a bold note for sure. Let's go ahead and close this. In here, I went over the print and the email buttons already. We've used the view button to see how we can preview. You also have a delete button to delete this statement if you decide you didn't really need to create it or whatever. So let's go ahead and delete this, and then we're going to move on to creating and sending batch statements. In Open Dental, we're going to do this from the Manage module, and we're going to use our billing button, and the billing list is a way of generating statements for all accounts who have a balance or a credit if you so choose. It will allow you to send multiple statements at once by mail, email, or electronically versus going to each individual account and creating a statement manually like we were just doing. So this is a huge time saver. In order to send electronic statements, if you're registered for or with a clearinghouse that has an electronic statement option, you do have the ability through the billing list to send those statements, to create a list and send them directly to there. It does require that you sign up for that service through your clearinghouse if they offer it. Other things that you're going to need to do before you come into the billing section to create your billing list is to set up all of your billing preferences, your billing types, your dunning messages, and your billing filters. And you'll get, if you watch our Billing One webinar, there's detailed information on how to set up all of those things. The other thing you're going to want to do before you run your billing statements each month is to come to the tools and run your billing and finance charges if you're choosing to apply billing and or finance charges to the statements. So you do that before you create your list, and our Billing 2 webinar goes over in detail how to use this tool. The other item that you're going to want to do before you run your billing statements is if your office is using repeating charges, which is somewhat rare in a dental office, but if you are using them, run the repeating charges tool. If you need assistance with this, you'll want to go ahead and call our support group to get help with repeating charges or refer to our user manual online. Once you've done those items, you can go ahead and click on the billing button in the Manage module. And if you have clinics enabled in your Open Dental database, you're going to have to choose which clinic you would like to send statements for, or you can do all clinics if you like. I'm going to leave mine set to all. And now normally when you come up into here, this should bring up the billing options window, but you're going to notice that mine came up to a list of bills. So what happened here is that if there were any bills that were created but not actually sent on a patient's account, or if you had generated a list of bills but hadn't actually sent those, they're still going to be sitting in here waiting to be sent. What we need to do is either send those or we need to delete them. And I am going to delete them. I'm going to hit the close button down in the lower right, and I'm going to say yes when it asks me if I want to delete all these unsent bills. And once I do that, I can then click on the billing button again. And you'll see this time I come into the billing options window. This is where you can set your billing filters, your dunning messages. Like I said, all of this stuff was covered in the Billing One webinar on how to set up your billing statements. The one thing I am going to do in this window is this date in the upper left, include anyone not billed since. I know that I ran my last billing statements on April 18th. So if I leave this date as the 17th, it's not going to include those patients, and I definitely want to send them another bill this month. So I'm going to set this to the date that I ran my last billing statement, and then come down here and hit the Create List button. Once I do that, it's going to generate a list for me of everybody who matched the criteria set in that previous window. So I'm going to go over the columns here. The name, this is going to be the guarantor's name. So if there's other family members, you're not going to see them listed here, only the guarantor. Your billing type, this will be whatever the guarantor's designated billing type is. The mode will be the default method of delivery for the guarantor's designated billing type. And this can be manually changed for single statements in this window. And I'll show you how to do that in just a bit. The last statement column will show the date that the last statement was sent, whether it was printed in person, regardless of the mode, it just tells you the date that a last statement was generated on the account. The balance total column, this is the entire family balance before insurance estimates, but after adjustments. The insurance estimate column is the total insurance estimates and write-offs of open claims for the entire family. And that leaves us with the amount due, which is the entire family balance after adjustments, insurance estimates, and write-offs have been applied. So this should be the patient's portion. And then our payment plan due. If you have patients with payment plans and there is an amount owing currently on the payment plan, they will also show up in this statement list. So this list of patients is interactive. You can double click on a patient to work with them, or you can single click on them and use the Edit Selected button to get to that same window we were just looking at. And from that window, so if we double click on somebody, you can make changes to an individual statement here. You can add notes, remove notes, whatever you want to do. You can change the mode. You can do those things to multiple patients at the same time. If you want to select several and edit all at once and change their mode, you can do that. From this list, you can also right-click and choose Go to go to the guarantor's account. So if you need to review what's gone on in the account, that's a quick way to get to that account. And then we can get back into our list. You'll notice that the statement list, it defaults to sort alphabetically by billing type. So first all of my standard accounts, and then all my patients alphabetically, then my email accounts, and again my patients alphabetically. This sort order can be changed to simply sort by the patient's last name, regardless of their billing type. You also can choose, if you have multiple emails set up in your database, which email address the statements will appear to come from. And if you have the clinics feature enabled, you're also going to have a drop-down to switch between clinics within this window. You can switch to sent, and we'll cover that in just a little while. We'll take a look at that after we send our statements. You can also, down on the bottom, select all. So if nobody's highlighted or you just have a few people highlighted, if you use the all button, it will select everybody. This is great when you get ready to send after you've been working with your list. Or you can select none. Now, if you did find somebody who's in the list that you didn't actually want to send a statement to, you can double click on them and use the delete button in here. That will go ahead and take them out of your billing list, and that way when you get ready to send, you won't be sending it to them. In addition to the all or none button, down at the bottom you may have noticed we have a print list option. This will print the list as we see it here. It will not print the billing statements to be sent to the patients. So if you need to print this list to try to figure out if everybody on it should or who should receive a statement, you can print this list and work on it outside of Open Dental, outside of this screen. And then our send button. This is when you're ready to send. You've got your list looking the way you want it. You're ready to send these statements. What this is going to do when you click the button is it will send whatever statements you have highlighted. So if they're all selected, it's going to try to send them all. If you have just a few selected, it will send whatever is selected. And you'll notice in the count section up above here that you can actively see how many you have selected. So we have a total of 28 statements on our list. Right now I have 5 selected. If I go back to all, I have all of them selected. And when I hit send, it will automatically try to send my email statements. It will also take any whose status or mode is by mail or in person, and it will create a single PDF file that we can then print our statements from. So when we hit the send button, nothing is going to print at this time, and I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to hit send. And I am warned that this could take a while, and depending on the size of your list, it can take a while, but with my 28 patients, I don't expect this is going to take too long. It asks me if I want to continue. I'm going to click OK. And if you pay attention to the counts section over here, we're going to see that we have started to have statements emailed and printed. Our counts begin to go up. And keep in mind that my email is not set up, so it's not really sending emails, and I expect some of my emails to fail. And it has generated this PDF file, which momentarily I'm going to minimize out of our way. I will bring this back up in front, but what I want to show you is here in Open Dental, I now have a message telling me that it skipped 8 of these people because they had either missing or bad email addresses. It printed 18. It emailed 2, and none were sent electronically because I am not set up for electronic billing. I can click OK to this message, and then what's going to happen is that all of the messages or statements that got sent have now moved to my sent list. So when I switch over, I can see now all of these people with today's date, they show as having had a statement sent to them. I can, if I'm looking for when I ran statements prior to this, I could come and change this date in here. I could go back to April 1st, hit the refresh button, and see who has received statements all the way back to April 1st. So I have that ability to come in here and look at what's been sent. Additionally, I'm going to just set this back to today. Additionally, if I had sent these statements and my PDF file, it didn't look right, whatever the case may be, I wanted to undo these, I could select them. I could select them all. I'm just going to do it to 1 here. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and uncheck the sent box. And this is going to delete the archived copy of the statement, asks me if I want to continue anyway. I say OK and OK. And now Jason is no longer in my list of sent and goes back to my unsent. Back over here to the sent ones. Really quick, what I want to do is show you, I'm going to right click and go to this account. And you'll see that here's the statement I just sent. It is in the patient's, the guarantor's account. I can double click on this and view. I can't edit anything because this has already been sent, but I can view what was sent to the patient. Additionally, I can go to the images module. In my database, I have it set to put statements that are sent here in the images module. So I can view that statement here as well and see the history of any statements sent to this patient. The statements that failed to go through, I would want to go back to and go fix email addresses or whatever caused them to fail to be sent, and then try resending them again. Now let's go ahead and bring back up that Adobe document that created with the 18 statements that were going to be printed and mailed. So what it's done is it's created a single file, but it has statements for all of the patients in my list. So as I page through this, each patient has their own individual statement. It may be one page only, it may be multiple pages long, but as I page through here, I can see all of these. And the print happens from right within the Adobe Reader. So I would hit the print button and go ahead and print those statements out, at which time they could be folded and stuffed. They're designed to be placed into a standard window envelope, and the patient's address should show through the window. And that concludes the Billing 3 webinar. If you have questions that weren't answered from my webinar today, please feel free to call 503-363-5432 and speak to any of our technicians. You can also check out our online user manual at opendental.com and find any of the information that I presented today in my webinar.